Iran struck Al-Dhafra Air Base in the United Arab Emirates, less than 12 hours after the United States launched coordinated strikes on Iranian facilities in Syria. The attack targeted one of the most critical U.S. Air Force installations in the Gulf region. Al-Dhafra hosts RQ-4 Global Hawk surveillance drones, KC-10 refueling tankers, and rotational fighter squadrons. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps confirmed responsibility through a statement released on Telegram channels monitored by intelligence services worldwide. Most people think Iran's retaliation doctrine is purely symbolic. In reality, the Islamic Republic has demonstrated willingness to strike American personnel directly on Allied soil when the escalation ladder reaches a certain threshold. What happened at Al-Dhafra represents either a catastrophic intelligence failure or a deliberate decision to allow the strike as part of a larger strategic calculus. The UAE government sealed access roads to the base within 90 minutes of impact. Satellite imagery over the facility was restricted on commercial platforms by dawn. In the next couple of minutes, I will show you what really happened, why 3 governments are refusing to confirm basic facts, and what this means for the regional war that officially no longer pretends to stay covert. Quick, before we continue, thanks a lot for tuning in. Your support is what keeps this show going, and I appreciate you watching. Please make sure you are subscribed and like the video so more people get to see this. Now let us get to it. The United States conducted strikes on 17 Iranian-linked targets across Syria, beginning at 0300 local time. The targets included weapons depots near Deir ez-Zor, command facilities outside Damascus, and logistics hubs near the Iraqi border. U.S. Central Command released a statement confirming the operation was a response to drone attacks on American forces in northeastern Syria over the preceding 72 hours. 3 American personnel were injured in those attacks. None were killed. The strikes were executed using a combination of F-15E Strike Eagles operating from Jordan and Tomahawk cruise missiles launched from destroyers positioned in the eastern Mediterranean. Iran issued no immediate public response through official diplomatic channels. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Tehran remained silent for 6 hours. That silence was deliberate. Within the Iranian command structure, operational decisions during active escalation are controlled by the IRGC Quds Force, not civilian government ministries. The decision to strike Al-Dhafra was made within 4 hours of the U.S. operation in Syria. The execution followed 8 hours later. The target selection was precise. Al-Dhafra is not a symbolic location. It is a node in the U.S. intelligence and strike network that enables operations across Iraq, Syria, Yemen, and the broader Middle East theater. Iranian ballistic missiles struck Al-Dhafra at 1400 local time. Initial reports from regional aviation monitoring networks indicated multiple impacts within the perimeter of the base. The UAE General Civil Aviation Authority issued a notice to airmen closing airspace within a 50-kilometer radius for 6 hours. Commercial flights were diverted. Al Ain International Airport suspended operations. The official explanation cited an unspecified security incident. No mention was made of ballistic missiles. No mention was made of Iran. U.S. military officials speaking on background to defense reporters confirmed impacts but refused to specify locations within the base, damage assessments, or casualty figures. The UAE Ministry of Defense issued no statement. The Pentagon issued no statement. Iran's Tasnim news agency, which functions as a semi-official outlet for IRGC messaging, published a brief report confirming the strike and describing it as a response to American aggression in Syria. The report was removed within 2 hours. Cached versions remained accessible through web archives monitored by open-source intelligence analysts. Satellite imagery of Al-Dhafra, taken 12 hours after the strike, showed no visible damage to hangars or aircraft parking areas. That does not mean damage did not occur. It means damage occurred in sections of the base not visible from commercial satellite angles, or that post-strike concealment measures were implemented rapidly. The base houses hardened aircraft shelters, underground command facilities, and ammunition storage bunkers designed to withstand near-miss detonations. Surface-level satellite analysis is insufficient to assess subsurface or interior structural damage. The missiles used in the strike were likely Fateh 110 or Zulfiqar variants. Both systems have ranges exceeding 300 kilometers and carry warheads between 500 and 700 kilograms. Flight time from launch sites in southern Iran to Al-Dhafra is approximately 8 minutes. The UAE operates THAAD and Patriot air defense batteries. Al-Dhafra itself is protected by layered point defense systems, including Avenger short-range interceptors and CRAM countermeasure platforms. If Iranian missiles reached the base, one of three scenarios occurred. First, the defense systems failed to engage due to detection failure or system malfunction. Second, the defense systems engaged and missed. Third, the defense systems were deliberately held back to avoid revealing intercept capabilities and radar signatures to Iranian intelligence. Each scenario carries different strategic implications. Detection failures suggest Iranian missile technology has advanced beyond current early warning thresholds. Intercept failures suggest saturation tactics overwhelmed defensive capacity, or that missile maneuverability defeated kinetic interceptors. Deliberate non-engagement suggests the United States chose to accept limited damage rather than expose technical performance data that would inform future Iranian targeting. Intelligence assessments leaked to Israeli defense correspondents suggest a minimum of 4 missiles were launched. At least 2 impacted within the base perimeter. The fate of the remaining 2 is unknown. They either missed, were intercepted outside visible range, or struck areas outside the base that have not been reported. Iran has struck U.S. facilities on Allied territory twice before with ballistic missiles. In January 2020, following the assassination of Qasem Soleimani, Iran launched over a dozen ballistic missiles at Ain al-Assad Air Base in Iraq. More than 100 American personnel suffered traumatic brain injuries. The Pentagon initially reported 0 casualties. That claim was walked back over subsequent weeks as service members sought medical treatment for concussion symptoms and cognitive impairment. The official narrative that the strike caused no harm collapsed under the weight of veterans' disability claims filed months later. In September 2022, Iran launched missiles at Kurdish opposition targets in Erbil, Iraq. Several missiles overshot and landed near the U.S. consulate compound. The State Department evacuated non-essential personnel. The Iraqi government condemned the strike as a violation of sovereignty, but took no retaliatory action. Both precedents demonstrate a consistent pattern. Iran uses ballistic missiles to deliver political messages that cannot be ignored. The strikes are precise enough to avoid mass casualties, but damaging enough to prove capability. The aftermath is characterized by official silence, delayed acknowledgement, and suppressed casualty reporting. Al-Dhafra follows the same playbook. Here is what nobody is saying publicly. American personnel were injured at Al-Dhafra. The number is unknown. The severity is unknown. Medical evacuations from the base to Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany were observed by aviation trackers monitoring military transport flights. A C-17 Globemaster departed Al-Dhafra 6 hours after the strike and flew directly to Ramstein Air Base. That is not a routine logistics flight. That is a medical evacuation profile. The Pentagon will not confirm. The UAE will not confirm. The injured service members will file disability claims in 18 months, and the truth will emerge in bureaucratic filings that never make headlines. The families of those service members are being told their loved ones are safe. That may be true. It may also be a holding statement designed to prevent media inquiries until the information environment is controlled. This is the cost of suppression. When governments refuse to provide basic facts, the vacuum is filled with speculation, rumor, and distrust. The families deserve answers. The American public deserves answers. The refusal to provide them is not operational security. It is political calculus designed to avoid escalation pressure. If the American people knew U.S. forces were hit by Iranian missiles on Allied soil, the political demand for retaliation would be overwhelming. By sealing the information, the administration retains control over escalation timing. That is strategic logic. It is also moral cowardice. The strike on Al-Dhafra changes the regional security framework in 3 immediate ways. First, it confirms Iran is willing to target American assets in Gulf Cooperation Council states, not just Iraq or Syria. The UAE is not a frontline state. It is a financial hub, a logistics node, and a critical partner in U.S. military operations. Striking Al-Dhafra signals that no U.S. facility in the region is off limits if Iran judges retaliation to be necessary. Second, it exposes the limitations of integrated air defense systems marketed as impenetrable shields. The UAE has spent billions on American and European defense platforms. Those systems either failed or were not employed. Either outcome raises questions about their operational value in high-intensity conflict. Third, it demonstrates that Iran has fully transitioned from proxy warfare to direct action. For 2 decades, Iran used Hezbollah, Houthi forces, and Iraqi militias to strike American interests while maintaining plausible deniability. That era is over. The IRGC now takes credit for strikes in its own name. That is not recklessness. That is confidence. Iran believes it can absorb American retaliation and continue functioning. It believes the United States lacks the political will to sustain a prolonged campaign. It may be correct. Most people think this ends here. In reality, this is the beginning of a new phase where ballistic missile exchanges between Iran and the United States become routine rather than exceptional. The suppression of information surrounding Al-Dhafra is not about protecting operational security. It is about managing public perception to delay the inevitable acknowledgement that the Middle East is in a state of undeclared war, involving direct strikes between major powers on each other's forces. The Pentagon will not call this war. Iran will not call this war. But war is not defined by declarations. It is defined by the repeated use of lethal force to achieve political objectives. That threshold has been crossed. The question is no longer whether this escalates further. The question is how many more strikes occur before one side miscalculates and triggers a response that cannot be contained. Every ballistic missile that lands on a U.S. base without immediate retaliation lowers the threshold for the next strike. Every suppressed casualty report creates a truth deficit that explodes when reality finally forces acknowledgement. The strategy of silence is not sustainable. It is a countdown. Thanks a lot for watching. I really appreciate your support. Join the discussion in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts. Do you believe the United States should publicly acknowledge what happened at Al-Dhafra, or is strategic ambiguity the correct approach? If Iran continues direct strikes on American bases without facing disproportionate retaliation, does that embolden further escalation or prevent a wider regional war? Let me know. Please subscribe and like the video if you want to stay updated. And click the video on the screen to see another. I will see you soon. This is not deterrence. This is acceptance. Iran has learned it can strike American forces without triggering full-scale retaliation. That is not a war with an exit strategy. That is a war running on momentum. And momentum does not negotiate.